Hi, everyone. We'll just see if a couple more folks are dropping in. I'm just admitting people from the waiting room, and then we'll get started in a moment. But while we're doing that, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, that would be great. Just let us know your name, where you're from, and any questions you have.
I guess I'll start because nobody else is talking. I'm Delaney. I'm calling from Clarkston, Washington. And I have questions about how the uniform and the textures of the jackets work.
Awesome. Yeah, and I don't think we have time for everyone to introduce themselves out loud, but you can use the chat function. Does everyone have access to the chat? And you can put it in there.
I'm trying here.
Cool, just want to make sure it works. Awesome, it does. All right, well, I'll admit people if anyone else asks to join, but otherwise we can get started. Thanks for introducing yourselves in the chat. And we are already recording, so we are good to go. Just a little bit of what we're going to cover today so y'all have an idea. We're going to introduce ourselves now that you've introduced yourself in the chat. And then we're going to cover some just basic city year things. We're going to talk about the interview and what you should prepare for, what to expect after that, and then give you time for questions. And we can definitely touch on that uniform piece, Delaney. So thanks for kicking us off. I will go first and then I'll pass it over to my teammates. So my name is Brenna Eden. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the service year director for the West region, and I'm the Denver advisor. So if you apply to Denver, you'll be working with me and I can answer all of your questions. I graduated from the University of Colorado and then I served with City Year Boston. So I'm from Colorado. I'm very familiar with the Denver area. And I will pass it over to Hawa.
Hi everyone, my name is Hawa Muhammad. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and I am the service year advisor for Sacramento and San Jose, but I sit in Los Angeles. I went to St. Catherine University and I am a City Year Los Angeles alum. I served as a core member in 2015, 2016, and then as a team leader in 2016, 2017, and I am from St. Louis, Missouri originally. And I will toss it to Bear.
Thanks, Hawa. Hi, everyone. My name's Bear. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the service year advisor for both Seattle and Detroit. And I did serve with City Year Seattle in 2012, and then I worked in the Seattle Public Schools for 5 years after that. Currently sitting in Detroit and working out of Detroit.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Molly McCormack, she, her pronouns. I am the service year advisor for the Los Angeles site. I graduated from San Diego State, and afterwards I served at City Year Los Angeles from 2015 to 2017.
Awesome. So for our warm up on the call and icebreaker today, we just wanted to introduce you to a little bit of City Year culture. So we often start and end our days and or meetings, sharing some joys, ripples, appreciations, sometimes shout outs and windows. So a joy is pretty self-explanatory, just something that brings you joy. It could be big or small, and appreciation to someone else that did something for you. A ripple is probably the newest one. So a ripple is something that influenced someone else. So just an example of a ripple you might see in the classroom is if I was working with a student and I taught them a new approach to a math problem, and then later I saw them sharing that same approach and teaching their peer how to do it, that would be a ripple. Something I did influence someone else to share that forward as well. Shout out is a shout out, and then a window is just, especially during this virtual pandemic time, just a window into how you're feeling that day, anything like that. So can we just have maybe 3 volunteers that are ready to just share a joy, ripple, or appreciation with us?
I can go. Do you mean like in the chat or like out loud?
Yeah, out loud. I know it's a little bit weird because there's a lot of people here and you don't get to meet in person, but definitely do it out loud and we can get to know you just a little bit better.
Okay, awesome. So I guess my joy would be that today I woke up and got to go on like a little nature hike pretty close to where I live. And it was really beautiful. It was kind of cold, but first blue sky in a while. So that was something that made my day today.
That's
Do I
awesome.
keep?
And
that
thanks
good?
for, yeah, that was
Okay.
great. And thanks for going first. People can
No
just jump
problem.
in when they feel ready.
Awesome.
I can go.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, first of all, hi guys. My name is Pranav. I joined like a couple of minutes late, so sorry about that. But one huge joy I have is, well, my one of like the first big pets my family got was a year ago. We got a dog, and I think that's one of the biggest joys I have because it's always nice going home and just seeing her because she's always so excited. It's like it's a big joy of mine.
Hi, everyone. My name's Phoebe, and one of my joys is that my family is healthy and safe. So I don't want to take that for granted in this unprecedented time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you to those of you that shared. If you have more, definitely share them in the chat and we would love to still hear them, but I will just move us along to the next part. So hopefully today's session will help you feel more prepared for the interview. We'll give you more info about City Year, how to schedule and prepare for your interview, and then what to expect next. And I am going to pass it to Hawa to talk about a City Year overview.
Awesome, thanks, Brenna. So before I go in a little more in depth, we're gonna go ahead and watch this video that'll share a bit about City Year, and then I'll share some more talking points.
And I did share the computer audio, so it should work, but let me know right away if you can't hear the audio and I will fix it.
I think I'm a better person because of City Year and how they helped me.
Amy's story is one of resilience and of understanding that barriers exist. We don't spin fairy tales here. We understand that there are systematic oppressions that our kids face.
It's really crazy in my house because my mom has to focus about everyone. And we have 8 kids, my cousin and my mom and dad.
We lost our house about 2 years ago. And ever since then, it's been hard on her.
Amy has a lot of emotions, just like all kids, and sometimes they become a little bit too much for the classroom.
I wouldn't want to do my homework, and I wouldn't really behave well. I would get out of my seat, yell in class, and not follow direction.
Her and her family have their struggles, and I think there's a lot of pent-up aggression around life being a little unfair.
As far as I know, Amy spent time in the principal's office going back since kindergarten.
When I got those calls because Amy was getting in trouble, it kind of made me feel discouraged because all these times I've been telling my daughter that they all have abilities to be good kids.
I feel like that's where City Year does our best job, is in addition to family, in addition to older siblings, we add an extra layer of like protection and support and guidance. There was a plan that we put together for Amy. What we found is that she was very responsive to constant interaction with adults.
She came up to me, she was like, hey, I think we look alike. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, can we tell everyone we're cousins? And I was like, sure.
We say that we're cousins. She's pretty, I'm pretty. She's smart, I'm smart. So that's why we said we're cousins.
That was like the first moment that I broke through with Amy, or she kind of broke through with me. There's a lot of factors that go into why Amy has improved over the course of the past year, and I do think City Year is one of them, especially with our SEL curriculum, learning how to manage anger, emotions, and coping skills. I think that those are all really important things that help students manage their energy, and especially for students like Amy.
Some of the things that help me behave better were by breathing and asking if I could take a little walk. So I started to behave better. My mom not getting phone calls from City Year.
What City Year does best is see the bright spots in every student. We're extra adults on campus who care how they are becoming and developing as a human.
One thing about Amy, like, she's a leader. She'll stand up for what she believes. And she'll also stand up as for other kids, you know? She always does what's best, right? Like, she has a good heart.
Amy led a chip protest.
So our principal had banned hot chips, and it was like a big uproar because all the kids love their Takis and hot Cheetos. She had an idea that if every single student in the program go on strike, then the adults would take notice.
What do we want? We want chips. When do we want it? We want it now.
We want chips! We want chips!
The most phenomenal thing that I have ever seen from a child.
City Year changed my life because they influenced me to do good. I come to school, I learn, I get good grades, and I make my mom happy.
It meant a lot to me to see this change in Amy because I know my daughter had it inside her all this time, and just to see her take it into action was really a satisfying feeling as a mother.
She's had a tremendous turnaround. I think self-regulation is something that we've talked about with her. When you are in control of your life, you are 100% responsible for every decision you make. What does it look like for you to care enough about the people around you to make a better decision?
And I can influence my little sister to do good so she can do better in class and do better in school too. And then one day she'll pass it on to my little brother and make it go around in the family.
She's incredibly smart, she's incredibly brave, she has so many natural qualities about her that make her such a good leader that I know that she can do anything she wants.
My hopes for Amy is for her to go to college, university.
I feel like I am a better person because of City Year and how they impact in my life. Thank you, City Year.
All right. Move us forward for Helen.
Yeah, so a lot of what you probably already know from the website and your own research and then what you've heard in the video, but City Year does serve in 350 schools across 29 cities and 21 sites. As a City Year Corps member, you're committing to a full-time service as a city. It basically means that you're serving in a diverse team of 6 to 12 peers in school in various school settings, and then you're preparing students with social, emotional, and academic skills and mindsets to succeed in school and in life. Along with that, you're also managing relationships and expectations with your teammates, various school staff, the teachers that you'll be working closely with that are called partner teachers, your students, and then the families in the school district. So there are a lot of people that you'll be working with closely to support the student. And like the video said, City Year is a small part of that support, but there are so many resources and things that are available that are being provided to them by students. And then as a Corps member, you'd be receiving robust training to develop your skills in the classroom and beyond. And these learning experiences can follow a lot of different formats, and a lot of that can be that you can use continuous coaching and feedback throughout your service year, that'll be experience that you can later use in the future, and you'll gain soft and hard skills as well. I believe next slide. Brenna. Oh, and I believe that is Molly.
Alrighty, thanks, Hawa. So preparing for your interview. We are gonna start off with some basic tips and tricks to help you prepare. We'll talk about some specific strengths and competencies that your interview host will be looking for. And then we'll wrap up with a checklist before we hand it off to Bear with next steps. So our first tip is it's more logistical, but interviews last on average between 45 minutes to an hour. So please set aside 1 full hour to complete your interview. Most of you are likely balancing multiple responsibilities like a full-time or part-time job and or school. So be sure to check your schedule before you sign up for an interview, just to make sure you have time for that full hour. You will be asked around 10 questions, and your interview host will be monitoring your time together in order to make sure there's enough time for every question to be asked and to ensure that you have time at the end of the interview to ask your questions as well. And so that means that your interview host may interrupt you if you have answered your question and we need to keep track with time. It also means that if your responses are pretty brief, they may prompt you and ask additional questions to really get a full response and picture of what makes you a great fit. The next tip is to pick a quiet space where you feel comfortable for your interview. We cannot tell if you're a good fit for City Year if we cannot hear your response to our questions, right? And you won't know how to respond if you can't hear the questions that your interview host asks. So we also recommend making sure that that your setting for your interview has quality cell service. I do want to recognize that sometimes finding a quiet place where you have some time to yourself can be challenging. I've hosted interviews myself with applicants who are caring for their younger siblings or riding the bus while completing their interview. And sometimes we were able to complete the full interview, other times we needed to reschedule, and that's okay. The important thing is that we're able to both hear each other and understand your experiences during this time together. Alrighty. The next tip is to review, excuse me, is to review your application and resume. So while we won't ask the same questions that are on your application during the interview, some of our interview questions will be similar. So you may want to utilize what you wrote in your short answer responses from your application to address the interview questions. And reviewing your resume will help you think of specific experiences that demonstrate your strengths as a candidate. Because overall, you really want to be ready to discuss those ways in which your prior experiences demonstrate your potential to be a successful core member with City Year. Maybe you have prior tutoring experience. Maybe you are a student advisor for your school major. Maybe you work at a team setting in your current job, or maybe you're collaborating over a school project with your classmates. Those are all experiences that we want to hear more about. And your resume just captures a snapshot of your professional volunteer experience. So this interview is really an opportunity for you to leverage those experiences and tell us more about yourself. Alrighty. So we also know you have likely had some interview experience yourself. So go ahead and share in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and share what are some interview tips you have to share with the group from your experience.
My name is Jordy. Kind of one of the tips I've learned from interviews is to make sure that you're speaking at a pace which can be fully understood and that you're fully comprehending your sentences before they come out, because sometimes when you're in an interview, you can be nervous, you can talk too fast, and you might just not get across what you want.
Definitely. That's a great tip. Thank you. You can also add on having water or clearing your throat before you're speaking, because I know that always happens to me. What other tips do folks have?
So I know that it's really important to ask at least one question because it shows that you care and that you're interested. So at the end of the interview, whenever they ask, do you have any questions? Make sure you have at least one.
having questions definitely shows that you're interested in city year, because we don't expect you to be experts at this point. So asking questions definitely shows your curiosity and your willingness to develop a more complete understanding of us and what service means.
It might also be a good idea to prepare some traits, because I know like in a lot of interviews it's very common for them to ask you like what are your greatest strengths or weaknesses, and at least personally in interviews I've had where I haven't prepared those ahead of time, it's kind of like they ask me that and then immediately my mind is racing to kind of think of a good answer to that. So it might be a good idea to have that already thought out before.
Definitely. And we'll get more into this when we talk about our competencies, but definitely curious to hear about your strengths. And we think of experiences as opportunities for growth within City Year. So this is your time to really showcase a growth mindset.
And I realized since we're recording this for people that can't make it, Molly, is it all right if I just read a couple of the chat questions? Because I don't think people will be able to see them.
Yeah.
But we have one tip that I have is to make sure you take a moment to think about the question before you answer. And that one is awesome. That's totally fine. We don't expect you to have your answer like immediately ready to go. So if you need to think about it, definitely feel comfortable doing that. Someone else said, be very specific. Think of actual experiences and apply them to your answers for each question. And that is like spot on. You know, just as an example with teamwork, a lot of times people tell me things that are important to a team, but we do really want to hear about teams you've worked on and how you've been successful in those. And scrolling. Be confident in your responses, absolutely. Write out your points ahead of time so that you don't forget to bring them up in the moment. Awesome. Practice out loud. Y'all are experts already. Cool. Thanks, Molly, for letting me interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that we covered those two. Look into information about where you're applying as well and specifics on those schools and districts.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, y'all. So let's go ahead and talk about our city year competencies. So the interview questions are designed to gauge your level of competence for these 6 strengths. I'll give y'all a few seconds just to read them over before I talk about each one. Okay, so what does commitment to a cause greater than self mean? This one comes from one of City Year's core values. We believe that committing to a year of full-time service as a tutor, mentor, and role model is a personal decision, and it's one that unifies individuals from diverse backgrounds to address shared civic challenges like our education system. So what motivates you to want to serve with us? What is it about our program that made you want to apply? What does this commitment mean to you, and why do you believe it matters? We are not here to judge, but we're here to just understand your personal motivation and values so we can see how that aligns with and contributes to our cause. The next one is growth mindset. This one comes from psychologist and researcher Dr. Carol Dweck. A growth mindset believes in their own innate experience, their own innate capacity to learn, grow, and develop. And they see that capacity in others. They see that capacity in others around them as well. Completing a year of service is challenging, so we're looking to hire core members who embrace challenges, look for opportunities to grow, and respond well to constructive feedback from management and really use that to improve. And so cultural empathy. You've likely heard this before in conversations with recruiters, but we'll say it again. You will be working with teammates, students, partner teachers, and community members who all come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. Maybe you are from the community you are hoping to serve and you work with teammates who are from all over the US. Or maybe this will be your first time living and serving in this particular community that you're applying to. So how will you take action to understand and empathize with those who are different in various ways from yourself? How have you taken this kind of action in the past, and how has that prepared you for this experience? Understanding your identity and reflecting on your values will really serve you well here, because it really does tie into your ability to build relationships. So think about how you enjoy connecting with children, youth, or other adults. What action have you taken in the past to be a supportive team player? How do you respond to conflict or disagreement? We are looking for core members who can listen and read emotional states and really take action to understand multiple perspectives and work constructively towards a resolution. So think about the types of conflicts you may encounter when you're working as part of a team, and be ready to share your personal strategies for conflict resolution. All right, another competency is self-management. Core members juggle multiple responsibilities, they work to meet deadlines, and they take on leadership opportunities. And you're expected to hold yourself accountable with guidance from your program or impact manager. So consider the responsibilities you're currently juggling. How do you prioritize? What tools help you stay organized and on track towards meeting your goals? Those are all questions that you can ask yourself to help prepare to meet this particular competency. The final one is solution-oriented. And I believe this ties into relationship building and self-management as well, but it adds another dimension to it. We are looking for core members who demonstrate flexibility and adaptability in the face of change and uncertainty. When presented with new information, how might you adapt your approach towards repairing a relationship? Or how might you leverage a strong relationship in addressing a challenge that you might be facing with your teammates or with one of the students you're working with? What are those guiding questions you ask yourself or others when you're working collaboratively towards a solution? Those are all questions that you can reflect on as you kind of think about this as well. And this won't be the last time you see those competencies. We don't expect you to be experts at this point, but go ahead and share in the chat with us or verbally out loud. Which competency are you interested in developing more personally?
For me personally, I'm really interested in the growth mindset. That's something I've been learning about in one of my classes recently. Yeah, I find it so fascinating, the impact that mindset can have on both like a student's learning and also as a team member, a core member, and learning and growing.
I think a competency that I am super interested in and kind of what drew me to this program was being committed to a cause greater than yourself. Because I am currently finishing up my senior year in business school, and I don't think that that's the career path that I want to go down. So I think this program would give me a lot more satisfaction and kind of help me grow further in that competency area.
Similar to what Phoebe said in the chat, I'm a political science and Southeast Asian studies major, and cultural empathy is something that I've taken to heart in a lot of different ways. I really want to implement what I've learned and what I've done into a business setting or any other setting particularly, and work on just developing how do you connect with people that may have hugely different backgrounds from you in a more practical sense.
Yeah, similar to that, I'm a psychology major, finishing up my senior year. And the cultural empathy is like really important. I'm currently in a cross-cultural psychology class, and just utilizing what I've learned in that course as well as in my deaf studies courses, I think is just like really important to implement into the real world.
His story with the hopes that
Awesome. Are there any trends in the chat, Brenna, that you want to highlight for folks who are watching the recording?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. You know, people kind of called them out when they were talking, a lot of cultural empathy and also how that can relate to medicine and patients. So they're all great.
Awesome. Well, like I mentioned, this won't be the last time you talk about competencies, but we can go ahead and go to the next slide. What it all comes down to is how well you know yourself, how prepared you are to share about your experiences, and how well you understand service with Cydia. But again, we don't expect you to be experts, so come with questions. Your interview host will be happy to address any concerns or answer additional questions that arise. And we're in this space as well, so we might have time at the end for a Q&A. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Bear for next steps.
Thanks, Molly. Appreciate it. So yeah, we're just going to go over a few things about what you can expect next from the process, and then we'll close out with some Q&A. So these are the most immediate next steps in the process. So most of you have probably already heard from a national admissions counselor via email about scheduling an interview. If you have not, the email is more than likely coming, but if you don't see that in like the next day or two, you can definitely reach out to your service year advisor and we can help figure that out. But most of you have already received an email with instructions on how to sign up for an interview slot. And just as a note, you will be able to, there'll be a ton of slots on there with a ton of different people. And we really encourage you to schedule it with any person at the time that makes the most sense for you, making sure you're considering what time zone you are in. And some of us will be on there too. Different service year advisors have different feelings about it, but you are welcome to sign up with anyone. You do not have to sign up with your service year advisor for an interview. So if you haven't gotten that email, reach out to us, but you should get it. Secondly, this Friday is when our deadline is for your reference form to be submitted. So if you haven't had your reference form submitted yet, please get in touch with your reference and make sure they do that by this Friday. You can log into the application portal where you submit your application and check there to see if they have submitted it or not. And there's also like in that same box where you look at it, you can click like send reminder, I think, but send something to send them a reminder to fill it out. But I also encourage you to reach out to them directly because sometimes those emails go to their spam and it's just important that you bring it to their attention. So then the next date to be thinking about is December 18th. So regardless of when you interview with us in this deadline, you will be notified about whether or not you'll be invited to serve by December 18th. You may hear earlier than that, but you will definitely hear back from us by December 18th about whether or not you'll be invited to serve. And if you are invited to serve with us, the deadline to respond to that offer is January 8th. So you'll hear from us about whether or not you'll be invited prior to sort of the winter breaks that most schools have. And then you'll have, that winter break to sort of decide whether or not you'd like to accept and just get back to us by January 8th. So those are the next upcoming dates. So the reference form on November 20th, you'll hear back from us after your interview about whether or not you'll be invited by December 18th. And then you'll have to let us know if you are invited, whether or not you'd like to accept by January 8th. And so now we're going to jump into some Q&A. If you could just go to the next slide, Brenna. Before we jump into the Q&A, I'm just going to put these blogs. These are blog posts, and they can give you a better look into like these. So these are written by former Corps members, and so these can give you a better idea of like the experiences that they've had, and what to think about for your interview and what to expect from your service year if you do end up serving with us. So these are just resources for you to look over and take what you like from them and use them to sort of prepare for not only your interview but for service with us. So I've dropped those into the chat, and so feel free to save those links somewhere and look at them at your leisure. And then, so this is our contact information. So we kind of told you at the beginning who is related to which city, but I'll just say that one more time and give you a chance to write this down. So if you're applying to serve in Denver, Brenna is going to be your point person, and her email is right here. If you are applying to serve in Los Angeles, Molly is going to be your point person, and her email's here. If you're applying to Sacramento or San Jose, How is going to be your point person, and her email's here as well. And if you're applying to serve in Seattle, I will be your point person, and this is my email here as well. So I'm going to leave this slide up for just another minute, so you can get that information down. You should have heard from us already, especially if you're here. So. But just in case you hadn't, we wanted to give this to you one more time. So I'm pretty sure the next slide is we're going to jump into Q&A. So at this point, we've gone through quite a bit of information with you, talked about some tips and tricks, giving you information about dates and stuff. So now we're here to answer any questions you might have. And, if there's questions about the interview or logistics or anything at all, we're happy to answer them. So we'll spend the next, as long as we need, answering any questions. So if you want to drop it in the chat, please feel free to drop it in the chat, and we will address it, or feel free to unmute yourself and we can address it as well. We'll try to address as many of them as we can out loud so that they're on the recording as well. So I will turn it over to whoever wants to ask a question.
Okay, so I'm assuming you guys have some kind of a uniform or a jacket or something that you guys have when you serve. Can you please describe the texture of that for me, please?
We actually have a lot of different uniform pieces. So the bomber is like the classic jacket you're probably thinking of. It's a bomber jacket, so I'm not sure if any of my teammates have a better way to describe it, but we also have like a waterproof raincoat, and you also get a fleecy zip-up jacket, which is actually kind of what I'm wearing, and it's literally just it's got fleece inside. So and just, for the uniform as a whole, you do get t-shirts that you can wear during service. And then we also have polo shirts, and that is the required, windbreaker. Thank you, Hawa. The bomber is like a windbreaker. Yep. So you'll have polos and button-up shirts that you can wear during service. And then you have like the rain jacket and a fleecy jacket and the bomber to go over that. And you also get a zip-up sweater, just like a yarn sweater. And we ask you to bring your own black pants and black shoes to service.
What's the texture like of the clothing, though?
It's like it's not soft. It's like almost a little crinkly on the bomber jacket. It almost feels like oh, I just lost the word. Not nylon. Now I can't think of it. I just had it and I lost it. It's almost like crinkly when you touch it.
Yeah, I know the polos and then the button downs are more of a performance material, and so like I would describe our polos to be kind of like, I don't know if you've seen like a golf polo or something like that. The material is sort of the same, and then I guess, I don't know. I think the fleece vest is fleece. It's pretty soft.
Yeah, the polos are polyester, and then I'd say the t-shirts and the button-up are cotton.
Cool, thank you.
And just some context on the uniform as well. We, you know, you're only serving with City Year for 1 year, maybe 2. And so the jacket and the uniform is just a symbol sort of at the school. When we return, you know, students know that they can trust you if they see you in that uniform. It might remind them of the person they worked with last year. So even though you might not be staying at that school, the uniform serves as a way to unite us all and, you know, demonstrate to the school who we are and why we're there. And it's just a symbol of trust amongst our students. So.
I have a question. So, I know City Year operates in many different cities across the United States, which is really cool. But within a particular city, are there like several schools? Well, I know like City Year works with different age groups as well, but among those age groups, like, are there maybe several high schools you guys work with within a certain city, or do you guys mainly focus on like one school per age group for like elementary, middle, or high school?
I can just go first. The Denver core is one of our smaller cores. So we have 71 core members and we serve 9 schools. So our teams range as small as 5 core members this year to as large as 10. So your team will be like around those numbers, and you serve in the same school all year with the same team and the same impact manager. And we do serve elementary, middle, and high school. So we have 2 elementary, 4 middle school, and 3 high school. And I'll let everybody else answer for their cities.
Thank you.
I have a question. Bear, what was your favorite part about serving with City Year?
My favorite part about serving with City Year, and I think this is similar for a lot of people, but maybe not everyone. For me, it always comes back to the students, right? And the relationships you build with them and their families. You know, you're with you're with these students in a lot of cases, at least during the school year, for more time than anyone else is. You spend more time with them than their parents, and you know, in some cases you get to spend even more time with them than their teachers because you're going to lunch with them and going to recess with them. I mean, depending on what grade level you're in. Obviously I was in a 3rd grade classroom, so you're spending a lot of times with these kids and you build relationships, and that I think is the most impactful piece for me, because then you build these relationships, but then not only, you know, do you get to know them, but you get to watch them grow and learn and have these moments of like growth where, you know, you're just amazed by them. And so for me, it's really always comes back to the students, you know. And I always like try and tell people too that the students can on certain days be the best and worst part of your day, right? Because students struggle too, and you work through those things with them. You help them get through those hard times. And my biggest piece of advice around students as well is like, I'm just answering my own questions now, but anyways, the biggest piece of advice I always give with people around students too is like, you kind of have to learn not to take anything personally, and remember that you're working with these kids who are growing and learning, and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to say things when they're upset that they don't mean. And you just have to be consistent and come back and know when to walk away from something before you come back and address it later. And yeah, so it always for me comes back to the students. You know, as far as like serving in Seattle, I could, and having lived there for 5 years, I could go on a little bit more about like specifically by the city, but in terms of overall biggest impact, it's the students for me.
I have a quick question. I was kind of wondering what you guys would say the traits that the most successful student coaches have. Like, what personality traits and kind of like skill sets do the people who do the best in this program kind of like have coming in?
At least for Denver, I had a list that our impact team had actually given, and it matches the competencies pretty closely now. So theirs was growth mindset, both for yourself, knowing that you're going to grow, but also for your students, and knowing that your students are going to grow and change, and you have to understand that, kind of like Bear said, they have good days and bad days, just like the rest of us. So growth mindset, and then also flexibility and adaptability. Just working in a school, you have to be so flexible. Things happen. People get sick. Kids get hurt. Just all sorts of random things happen when you're working with, so many children. So being flexible and adaptable and just able to roll with the punches is super important. And I'm kind of typing down some schedule stuff in the chat just to answer that question too. But I'll let my teammates answer.
I'm curious about how City Year kind of prevents like burnout, just because I know like the hours can be quite long and the service is for an entire year. So I'm just curious, like especially in from the location that I'm looking at, I've seen that there is a bit more burnout. Obviously, like I don't want that to like be an issue for me, just since like mental health is so important.
No, I'm doing a lot of the answering, but we have a really robust program in Denver. Oh, sorry, Hawa, were you gonna go? Okay. Denver is a little different, so like just acknowledge that we'll all have different answers, but we do have a Masters of Social Work intern who supports core members with like personally and with their students around mental health. Also, one of our staff members has a degree in social work and has a lot of programs and trainings that she runs to support with that. We also have Core Council, which plans like appreciation events and committees and does activities for people to participate in. And a lot of our teams do their own self-care activities. So those are just a sprinkling of some of the things we do, but I'll let Hala go.
Yeah, also nationally, we have a partnership with Talkspace, I believe, which is a texting like therapist platform that all core members have access to free of charge. You also, as a core member, have access to EAP that can connect you with a therapist. And so we like really encourage our core members to take advantage of those resources, especially because we do know that the days are hard. Working with students can be really unpredictable. And so making sure that you're taking care of yourself is incredibly important. And so there are resources that exist. And then like Brenna was saying, it differs from site to site, but I know that it is a priority for all of our sites to make sure as much as possible that our core members aren't burning out. And so yeah, there is Talkspace, there is EAP. A lot of like managers and school teams will spend a lot of time doing just like self-care things. But at the end of the day, it's also important that you're like prioritizing that for yourself and like making the space and time to do that as well. And so it's a partnership. So it's like part of it is on you, and also part of that is also in conjunction with what the sites and our like nationally we're doing. But yeah, there are resources that also exist. And then I see a question in the chat, but how has city responded to the pandemic? I know it's hard to determine what will happen in the future. Will city adjust to COVID-19? I can answer that, and then folks can also jump in. Most of our core members are serving virtually, and they have been doing that since the pandemic, or like lockdowns and things happened in March. And so it has been an adjustment for a lot of folks, but I think our sites have done a wonderful job of trying to figure out, or like working with the districts to try to figure out how to best make that adjustment, how to best support students virtually. And so it's been working, which is, I think, much to everyone's surprise. While it's been an adjustment, it has worked really well. And so we're like, I think we do have like contact tracing within our sites to make sure that folks do come into contact with others who like contact COVID, there are like resources in place to make sure that they're all supported as well. But yeah, core members are serving virtually. In some places there are, if the school is hybrid, then they're serving in person, but that differs from site to site, and that I don't really have like logistics around what that looks like. But yeah, like we've been taking it very seriously. We're doing the best that we can to make sure our staff and core are safe, which means doing a lot of virtual work. Yeah, and then anyone else can chime in to answer that a little more in depth.
Yeah, and for LA, also virtual. So regular day-to-day service looks like supporting instruction via the chat box on Zoom, like responding to students' questions posed there, or providing definitions of concepts and vocab. You might lead a small session in a group as like a breakout group with a small set of students as well. You'll be observing for their academic strengths and challenges and following up with your partner teacher on additional needs. You also may do attendance tracking, and you may create positive videos that support a positive culture with your school team. So it won't be service all day, all the time, but you'll have team building opportunities as well to help you self-care. That's a typical like day-to-day virtual service, what that can look like.
I've joined a couple after-school programs, and those, I don't want to say they're more or less important than before, but those have been like a really important space for students to engage in the virtual world, is to just have someone else to talk to when they're having such limited social engagement right now. So the after school spaces have been really influential in Denver, and students have been joining those to get homework help and also just to hang out and talk to people and talk to some of their peers. How, Molly and Bear, do you want to share more about like your core sizes and how many schools that you have? Because I think I was the only one that shared that. And like I said, Denver's pretty small, so we're not the norm.
Yeah, I think Seattle's not that much bigger than Denver. We have 86 core members, and we do what's it called? I can't remember the name for it, but we're split into two different sides of the city, right? So we have our west side of the city schools and our east side of the city schools, and each side has one high school that they sort of feed into. So there's the elementary schools that feed into the middle schools that feed into one high school on each side. So that's sort of the model in Seattle. And I know, like, I don't know if other sites are like this, but those things are always, not always, but they can change. Like usually every site has plans to go into more schools and to get into more of these feeder patterns so that they can help students, that are feeding into these high schools with large dropout rates. So, but pretty similar, I guess, maybe a team or two bigger than Denver, but 86 core members feeding into two high schools.
And then in Sacramento, we have it's a pretty small core, about 60 to 65, about 60 core members. And then we're in elementary, middle, and high school. I don't know the exact split of like what it is, but I know that we're in some like K through 8 schools, and then we're mostly in middle schools, and we're not in a high school, or we're not in high schools in Sacramento. And then with San Jose, we have about 120 core members, and so we're in 2 high schools, I think like 3 middle schools. I'm actually looking at it right now, and then quite a handful of elementary schools, and then we are in a TK through 8. And then San Jose, most of our schools are in East San Jose, so like that East Bay area, whereas Sacramento, they're more so in the more so in like the Midtown area. I'm not too familiar with Sacramento, like or the landscape of it, but all the schools are pretty close together, and some of them feed into each other. So a lot of our students might like have city year in an elementary school, and then they'll also have city year at a middle school just to continue that that support for them throughout their time in our school, in the schools that we serve in.
And for LA, we have 226 core members serving this year. We're one of the larger sites in our network. We serve in about 25 schools. They're a mix of elementary, middle, and high school, but we only serve in grades 4th through 9th. And we serve in Watts, South LA, Boyle Heights, and like Pico Union, Koreatown neighborhoods.
For the school placement question in the chat, I just wanted to add too that we'll be having more of these info sessions as we go along. If you get an invitation to serve, you'll have more chances to connect with us too, and we can definitely delve more into the details of how each site does school placement. And as we go further along in the process, you'll have more and more individual sessions with us where it's site specific as opposed to like the broader regional space. So I just wanted to call that out. And you only serve in one school throughout your entire year of service so that you can work with the same students every day and be able to build that relationship and support them.
I just had a clarification question for Molly. You're in charge of the LA schools, right? And you did mention the LA teams work in like elementary, middle school, high schools, but just to clarify, you said you mainly focus on the grades 4th to 9th? 4 to 9?
Yes, 4th through 9th grade.
Okay.
So each core member will have their own grade or their own class of students to work with throughout the year.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
She's pro city year. Her name is Azula.
Well, I think that is an awesome way to end it. We definitely want to respect all of your time as well. And we have a meeting coming up too. But if you need to get in touch with your service year advisor, just shoot us an email, give us a call, and we can definitely answer more questions as we go through the process. Otherwise, good luck and thanks for coming today. And if you have feedback, definitely let us know that too.
Thank you.
Thank